Hey everybody, Nerd Transformed here again, and today I'm reviewing the Transformers 2007 movie Voyager class Blackout, and it does have Scorponok as well. Now this is a figure that's kind of a question of relevancy right now considering the new Leader Class Studio Series Blackout that's much more accurate just came out. So right now he's kind of in a questionable zone. Blackout here does have a decent looking helicopter mode, even for today. He's actually able to roll around if you flip out the wheel. I don't have mine flipped out as it's a little tricky. But you can actually roll around when you have all three wheels in the ground. Strangely enough, he has actually a very inaccurate color scheme to the movie, being mainly a bluish gray with some black and gold highlights, or bluish gray and black color scheme with gold highlights, as you can see here and around the window. While in the movie, he's kind of much more of a darker, grayish, silver kind of thing going on. The blades look pretty good, though, although they are easy to pop off. These are the most common things to lose on this figure, besides the Scorponok figure, as they really do pop off that easy. I mean, they are very easy. I mean, that's a good thing in one way, because that means it doesn't break, at least. At least these blades won't break with how easy they pop off. I mean, honestly, boom, done. If there's any pressure on them, they're more likely to pop off than break, but I guess I'd rather have them pop off than break, but they are extremely easy to lose. These are the things that are most likely to be lost when you're hunting for this figure. And considering how he transforms or anything, you're pretty likely to lose at least one. The cockpit on mine, you might notice, doesn't quite sit quite right. That's because he has an auto transformation, much like a lot of the Voyagers in the 2007 movie. And unfortunately, mine's misaligned, and it's it's a very simple auto transformation, but it's really easy to get it out of line and the gears to be out of place. And unfortunately, that does mean my cockpit won't sit quite right. I could fix it, but it's such a pain that I really don't care enough. I'm really never displaying him in his helicopter mode. And that's never gets his helicopter mode. I just don't tend to display my Transformers in their vehicle mode. But it is a very good looking helicopter mode for what it is. But yeah, it is rather unfortunate. The two most common problems with these figures, blades popping off and the cockpit being misaligned due to the auto transformation gears sitting out of place. Now, Blackout does have a couple of gimmicks in this mode. His main gimmick is the kind of the classic spinning rotor gimmick, much like Armada Cyclonus. However, unlike Armada Cyclonus, it's actually a rather quiet one. Oh, I didn't quite click in the air quite right. That's not Blackout, that's my own issue, but he is rather quiet. If you remember Armada Cyclonus, it was a cool gimmick, but it was extremely loud. Here, you get a pretty decent spin, and it's fairly quiet. I mean, just pressing it once, you get a lot of spin out of it, and it doesn't stick out that much either. It's just that one little switch. I mean, yeah, it does mean you have a little connector piece just sticking out the back of a helicopter, but it could have been much worse considering the size of it. Only thing is it doesn't spin this piece as well, but that does spin pretty well on its own. You just don't have a handy-dandy button for it. Now, as I was holding him up, you might have also noticed this little cage device near the back. This is Blackout's other gimmick, as this contains his little buddy Scorponok. You might see a much smaller lever right here, and you just simply press it, and the cage pops open, and the little Scorponok pops out. Now, this is just a simple little PVC figure. There's really not much to it. He is in two pieces, though, as his tail is a separate piece that's spring-loaded. So it does kind of give you that little jabby scorpion sting action if you want. And he does actually have some paint on them. Not much, but he does have some paint. Some black along the tail, and a little bit like a silverish gunmetal for the center part. Not much at all, but the sculpting is really nice for such a small figurine. So it's enough that you get kind of the idea. And to put him back in, you do put Scorponok in upside down, claws pointing forward, and you just click it like that. And you can see him in this mode, but for the most part, he's not really noticeable. And talking about the paint, I do think Blackout has some pretty nice paint on him. There's not much in this mode, but it's enough to kind of get it all across. You don't really expect a lot of colors for a military helicopter, especially Decepticon. But you do get some black up here, get some black for the windshield, some yellow around it, and that little weird bronze gold color right here. And then black for the little gun there. So, not a lot, but just enough to kind of get the idea across. Oh, and some red along the tail there. He's not a colorful character, but he's not meant to be either. So yeah, he's got a couple of gimmicks in this mode. I forgot to mention the Scorponok. If you have the deluxe size Scorponok, a much bigger one, you may notice there's 2 peg holes on the top of him. You flip his tail. I don't have the deluxe, but if you did, you could flip the tail to where it's pointing downward, peg the top of Scorponok into the bottom here, where these 2 pegs are, and you could actually have the deluxe Scorponok riding with Blackout. Granted, it's not size accurate. This isn't the Scorponok that's supposed to be size accurate, but it is cool. There's some interaction between the 2 characters, since those were the only big toys that both characters got, is the Voyager and the Deluxe. So it's actually really cool that those 2 can interact like that. And here we have Blackout in his robot mode. Now, he does actually have a pretty decent transformation. Not overcomplicated like a lot of movie figures. Especially after Starscream, who wasn't overcomplicated, but took some finagling. However, he does have a few issues. Many of the gimmicks were in the top and the tail of the helicopter, which means that whole chunk pretty much has to be removed as a part transformation. Basically, your part forming for transformation. Now, I have tested this, and you can do it without removing it, but you pretty much have to if you want to make it a little easier on yourself. And just to show you how much of a part forming piece we're talking about, pretty much a third of his weight in body is just this one piece. The entire piece where the tail rotor piece connected, which I guess it makes sense if it's connected all the way up here, but yeah, this entire piece and the little cage gimmick sticking off with Scorponok. It's all one separate piece. And it hardly transforms too. The only major transformation is the cage flips around, and this part, which is pretty cool, it actually moves all the blades around in order to be more accurate, as right here is how it is in helicopter mode. If you put all the blades back, and then it actually slides down a little bit to kind of give off more of that look he had in the movie, where he had all the blades pointing down. So that's actually a pretty cool effect that actually pulled it off a little bit better. But yeah, it does mean his transformation involves a lot of, not a lot of parts forming, but one major piece of parts forming. And that's not going to be for everybody. Also, then there's also the auto transformation, which should be a simple one, since all it is just the head and chest flipping into place. And how it's supposed to work is once you bring the legs down, because they transform from the bow of the helicopter and flip down, it's supposed to make the head and chest flip around as it does that. And we've seen that kind of thing with a lot of Transformers before. But for some reason with the first movie, a lot of auto transformations had really crappy gear placement, and like I mentioned during his helicopter mode, they often got misaligned. The only one I don't think had a major issue with it is like Starscream. And I'm not trying to praise that figure over and over again, just he's a good example from a similar time in the same line. So yeah, it's extremely easy to break or just mess up the gears out of place, and hence why mine doesn't sit quite right. Here it doesn't look too bad, but in helicopter mode you saw how it was a little bit out of place. He also actually has a minor one in his knees, funny enough. How this works is his knee guard, you press it down, and it makes the front of the foot pop, the front of the foreleg pop out. It's so minor you might not even notice it. Honestly, I didn't really find this until I looked it up. Just before this review, really. I really did not know about that. And I don't really like how it looks. I don't really like how it just kind of creates an even more panel-y looking foot, especially since it doesn't connect to anything. But it's a neat little gimmick nonetheless. But for now, I am just going to push these back in. But, you know, you can leave them out like that. I'll probably actually leave them out just for a review, so that way he's completely the way he's supposed to be. So now let's talk about Blackout's actual robot mode, and it actually looks pretty good. Even if it's not perfectly accurate to the movie. He certainly looks better than the fast action battle I reviewed previously. And from what I looked up, he's basically more or less based on how his concept art looks back when he was known as Incinerator, as I believe he was called. So yeah, this really isn't meant to be movie Blackout, more of like Incinerator. They started making the toy before they actually finalized the movie looks. But I don't really think that's a bad thing. It gives him a certain flavor, if you would. Because otherwise, he'd kind of be completely pointless after the Studio Series 1 came out. Kind of like the movie Starscream figure I reviewed previously. Not too many people are going to have a reason to buy him anymore, unless you're really just into how he looked in that toy. Here, you can at least say, hey, he's a different Blackout from the movie Blackout we have now. He's not for accuracy, he's for an interesting idea. And also, in some ways, I kind of like how his look is better. It's not accurate to the movie, but kind of the chunky proportions and everything, except for that really small head. He does have a rather small head. But still, it's a cool that at least we got a Blackout mold that actually has a reason to exist, like, has an interesting idea behind it. It's not just Blackout from the movie, this is Blackout before he was Blackout, pretty much. And even if he looks inaccurate, I still think he looks very cool and powerful. He actually does have really decent proportions, really nice chunky. He looks powerful. Except for that head. That head is really tiny. But in another way, you can kind of say that, hey, if his head's the same size as Bumblebee's, he's really huge compared to Bumblebee. Or say his head's the same size as Optimus Prime, which I think is kind of what it's supposed to be. If his head's the same size as Optimus Prime's going to be coming up like here. Like, it's kind of a cool effect in a way. It does, I mean, he does have a little pinhead. He has a very small pinhead. Blackout seems, like, animated Blackout has a similar thing where he had a very small head compared to his proportions. But it also kind of works in a way because it does make him look very big and powerful. I think it would work better if he was like an Ultra Class toy to where his head would be the size of a Voyager and he has this big, huge body all around him. So yeah, he's a very, you have to like the flavor before you taste it, really. But he's pretty cool, I think, for what he does. Now let's talk about his gimmicks in this mode. Remember that rotor gimmick he had in his helicopter mode? That kind of cool one that was pretty quiet? Normally those kind of gimmicks become useless in this mode. Once again, look at Cyclonus. There's no reason for him to have his helicopter blade spinning in his robot mode. And now, granted, it is a humongous piece of kibble, but there's a reason it part forms too. This actually forms a weapon. What weapon is that? It actually meant to form his rotor blade weapon from the movie. And I'm going to go ahead and show you how it's done. You might have noticed this hinge here. You simply bring that down. Go ahead and get all the blades spread back out. Like so. And then you're just going to simply have it come over his shoulder. You may have to flip his little rockets out of the way. And just see this one, there's like a peg right here. Depending on which side you're pegging it on is which one you're going to need to use. But you do just kind of click it like that. Actually, maybe you have to use the inner peg. Maybe, no, it can't go any further. So you do have to have it kind of just barely hanging on from the outside peg. You can bring the rockets back in to kind of help hold it. But there you go. And you can outstretch the arm to kind of try to hold that one little peg that's sticking off. There's like a little peg that's meant to be the handle. There we go. Can take a little bit of finicking, but you can get the look going. Now, granted, at first glance, you see this big old weapon, you're like, oh, this looks really powerful, but then you really look at what it is, and yeah, it's just a giant fan. I mean, even when you get the actual gimmick going, it's just a giant fan. I'm sorry, I get what they were going for. The rotor blade weapon's actually a cool weapon in the movie, and the new leader class actually has like a really accurate one. This, I get they were trying to get the gimmick to work in both modes. They wanted to give you a reason to still use this gimmick here, and not just have it be a big waste of space. And I appreciate the effort, I really do. But it just doesn't work. It's too big, it's too clunky, it doesn't even look like a weapon. I mean, all they do was like drill a cannon right in the middle there, and at least it would have looked like a big powerful cannon, but this, nah, I'm sorry. Credit for effort, but not much else. A for effort. F for, not F, but a D for actual results. As honestly, he looks a lot more threatening without it. Speaking of gimmicks, he does still have the Scorponok. You could just press the switch right here and pop him out like that. But it kind of just, considering the position of it, it kind of makes it look like he pooped Scorponok out. But, you know, that gimmick still works here too, so at least the gimmicks do still work in robot mode. They're not useless. That's credit I'll give them there too. A lot of toys that have gimmicks, they're only useful in one mode. Here, at least you can use them both. The only gimmick you really can't use anymore is the Deluxe Scorponok. And also, where would you attach him anyway? I mean, I guess you could make a really cool, like, four-armed monstrosity, but you really wouldn't want that. But unfortunately, it does mean that humongous piece of kibble is just hanging over his shoulders and sticking off the back, and it just doesn't look good. I really want it to look better, but it just doesn't. And also, because of that gimmick, we already mentioned how small his head is. I don't really have a figure right on hand for comparison, but he's a really small Voyager. Here, let me grab something real quick. There we go. Here is, she's not a movie figure, but here is Deluxe Prime, Transformers Prime First Edition Deluxe RC for comparison. And you can see, he's definitely still taller and bigger. And he definitely has a lot more bulk. But as far as actual height, especially at the head, he's actually almost the same height as a deluxe. I mean, the top of it, RC's little what'd you call these? The point on RC's head is like basically at his eye level. He's definitely still taller and much chunkier, but he is pretty much almost eye level with a deluxe. Now, granted, like I said, he has all this bulk, but that's exactly the point, though. Because of the gimmick, that bulk couldn't be worked into the rest of his body to make him a little bit bigger. A lot of it just had to be put to the back where the gimmick is. So, and ironically, his new Studio Series figure has a similar problem where the helicopter mode is huge, but then robot mode, he gets a lot smaller in a later class. Later Studio Series Blackout actually maybe like Ultra Class size, like the old Ultra Class. He's like only a little bit bigger than a Voyager in that one. And this one kind of suffers the same problem where, as far as actual height goes, he's only about a little like a Deluxe Plus kind of thing. It's not a bad thing, I don't think it's really a bad thing, but it is going to bother some people. They're not going to like the fact that you bought a Voyager and he's not really Voyager sized. But I think it's okay. Okay, now let's talk about Blackout's articulation. He has a decent amount. His head can swivel. Not ball jointed, but he can swivel it, even though he's just going to stare into his own kibble for the most part, but he can look around. You do get shoulder movement going that far forward, that far back. And you can go outward that far. It's pretty tight. You do get a swivel. You might also knock this piece loose up here, but you do get a swivel. You do get just a single elbow joint. Kind of looks like there's a double, but that's not actually a joint there, it's just sculpting. But you do get a joint there. And you do actually get some hand articulation, just a little bit like that. But you can count that for something. You do get a waist swivel, which is pretty nice. It's kind of rare to see those today. You do get forward movement that far. You can go backward, and you can actually get, if you have it going outward a little bit, you can actually get a decent amount. These little side skirts do pop up out of the way on hinges. You can give him a really high side foot kick. He actually can get like a really almost karate kind of kick going, especially if you like start bending him that way. Granted, while the kibble can't quite balance it, but you can do that. You do get a swivel above the knee. Do get 90-degree knee, which is pretty decent. You can say you get some ankle movement. You can actually move that piece and kind of flatten out his foot to give him like a staggered pose or something. It's enough you can get a couple more poses. Nothing fancy, but it's there. If you really need it, it's there. That's enough to be worth pointing out. Oh, and if you want to count it, the missiles can move by going inward, and they can kind of swivel around. So if you want to do that. And let's get him into a decent pose. There we go. That looks kind of cool. So overall, I think he looks great in both modes. Especially in helicopter mode. Even robot mode still looks decent, and I still really like the whole, based on his concept art, that gives him a unique look from all the other Blackouts. The gimmicks are kind of cool, but they do unfortunately interfere with his transformation and his robot mode. And non-auto transformation is just a mess for how simple it is. Normally I can kind of forgive an auto transformation if it does a lot of cool stuff, but this one's really simple, and yet it still screws up. So that is pretty unfortunate to me. If you're looking for a fun figure loosely based on movie Blackout, then he's a good addition to your collection. If you care about accuracy, save your cash for the Studio Series Deluxe, or Studio Series Leader Class. And don't forget there are a couple of repaints of this figure out here, so if you like the look but want different colors, check them out. This has been Nerd Transformed. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I hope you have a good day. Take care.